So welcome, Joanne, to the podcast.
Hello. Obligatory wave on Zoom.
Yeah, which comes out perfectly in audio. So Joanne, I'm really excited to speak to you today because I know you're one of the most well, you've won awards for your small business blog, which is already a great source of content for people. But before we kind of launch into that and your advice for new bloggers and networking, which I know is a passion of yours, I'd love to know, how did you get started in blogging?
It kind of happened by mistake. So I used to, previously, before I had children, I used to run a day nursery. And then I was pregnant with my son, and I kept thinking, I don't really want to go back to day nursery and look after other people's children while my new son is being looked after by somebody else. So I decided that I was going to be a full-time mum. And like 6 months into this, I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored. Like, as much as I love my children to pieces, I really missed mental stimulation. Basically, I had a job where I was always constantly thinking and planning and doing stuff, and then all of a sudden I was at home and I didn't have that routine, and I didn't have that drive anymore. So it just kind of happened by mistake that I started a party supplies business, and it was because Charlie had gone to a party. I think he was about 6 months old, and at the end of the party he got given this bag, a plastic bag full of like inappropriate presents for a 6-month-old, and they were all plastic and it was all sweets and it was just rubbish. And I was like, oh, I felt really disappointed for him. And then of course, like anybody else, I was like, well, I can do this much better than that. So I literally just started making party bags out of fabric party supplies and stuff, and eco-friendly wooden toys to go inside the party bags. And I did that for a while. Then I had my second child, and I suddenly realized that I didn't actually know how to do half the stuff, because I'd never run a business before. So I didn't know how to do any of the business side of it. So I started like online networking on forums and things. And it just so happened that somebody I'd chat to on a forum lived around the corner. So we decided to meet at a mums and toddlers group, because we were like, it's safe, there'll be lots of other people there, So we met this mums and toddlers group and just decided from there that we were going to start a networking group specifically for mums who had under fives at home and needed to network with other small business owners and learn new skills and things, but couldn't because they had little children. So we would hold our events in soft play areas. And then in 2010, I won a small business award, Dorset Business Mum of the Year. And all of a sudden, these online websites were asking me to write content for them, do articles about networking, running a business around children. And I was like, oh, I want to be able to share this with everybody else, that I have this expertise, but I didn't really want to put it on my party supplies website, because nobody looking for party supplies would be very interested in my knowledge of SEO, for example. So I started my blog, Joanne Dewberry, and it kind of just went from there. So the content I started writing about craft businesses, I turned into a craft business book. And then the content I wrote about networking, I started turning into a networking book. So for me, my blog is quite a huge part of my business. It is my business.
Yeah, that's such an amazing evolution. And how I love how you've kind of picked up the skills you needed along the way, but not on your own. And I think that's a big thing, particularly for mums in business who are perhaps doing so from home and are a bit isolated because of the kids' schedules and things. It's great to find other people who have complementary skills, who understand what you're going through. And I know that was something that I found when I started my business when my daughter was 5 months old. And I'd come from corporate where I'd worked in women's networks, and then I started my own business, and I was trying to find the business networks, and was like, where are they all? And there was one, but it was just all middle-aged men who didn't even have their own business. They were leaders of big businesses, so no one anywhere near having the same challenges I did. And I felt really quite isolated in my first business as a communication consultant, because my friends either didn't work, or they worked full-time, or no one quite understood. And it was, so many new things to learn as well, having always worked in business and marketing. I thought, oh, this is going to be quite easy. But there's so many things, like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. And where do you start with this? And so it's great to network and pool those skills and build, I call it a success circle, people who get your mission and who are there for you to support you and share ideas and pick you up when you're just like, you've banged your head on the wall just one time too many.
Yeah, definitely. I think like for me, I sort of call it, I use support network and sort of your tribe, and those people that you have in that network, they're there when you're really struggling and they can help you out, and then they're there when you're celebrating something to give you that pat on the back and say well done, but they're also just there for you to have a chat with. I think it's really important, and I think especially when you're on your own, so many people underestimate actually having business friends. So you might never buy one of their products, you might never buy their service, but because they're your friend and you've built that relationship with them, that you feel comfortable, you've built a trust with them, you're always going to recommend them to other people. But the whole thing of being a friend, it helps you out far more than that basic sale. And I think there's so many people go into a networking event like intent on selling something, so that they're just looking for that quick £20. They're not thinking about the long-term game of making a relationship with somebody else, and actually what they get out of a long-term business relationship outweighs that 20 quid in the beginning every single time.
Yeah, that's so true. And we were just chatting before the show how networking used to be such a painful thing for me, being quite a shy person. It's really not my happy place, or it wasn't. But as soon as I learned the skills and learned how to that it's not all about me, I'm not there to perform to impress people, I'm there to make contacts and see who else I can be helping and make those relationships. And some of the relationships I've made at these events have lasted me years and years. And like you say, we're there to support each other, we can refer each other, we can bounce ideas off each other. When we've got a new something we're launching into, like writing a book for the first time, we can share that progress with someone else who can be an accountability partner. I mean, there are so many different ways that these relationships develop, and it's not, as you say, it's not just about the sale, and often it's the sale is the least valuable outcome of meeting someone through networking.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well that what you were saying about the traditional networking, everybody has that view that it's going to be like that. And actually, especially in my book as well, I talk about the different processes and the different things that you can learn. Like, networking is a skill. It is a skill to be able to read somebody's body language. And we've spent so much time in the last 10 years sat behind a computer that actually some of these things we have lost the skill of listening to people properly, reading body language properly, reading the tone of people's voices correctly and things like that. It is a skill, but once you get into it and you start doing it on a regular basis, it just becomes natural. I forgot what I was going to say there.
Yeah, and once it becomes natural, then, and you feel relaxed having these conversations with people, then you can see that they relax too, and it just becomes a whole nother experience. And it's, as I say, it's fun. It's not about, I think it was in Tinkerbell, she had Barbie, and she said, it's not about meeting strangers, it's all about the friends you haven't met yet. And I thought, oh, that's a really nice analogy of networking, and it really is that. It's about walking into a room to meet all the friends you don't know yet, and it's when you start to turn it around like that and take the pressure off yourself, it becomes really fun.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, especially given the current circumstances, it's nice to, everybody is having some sort of struggle at the moment. And it's nice to have those people who understand what you're going through, to have those conversations with. But it's also, networking groups for me that stipulate only one person from this industry can go really is like a bit of a bugbear for me, because I have lots of friends who are VAs, and no VA can possibly offer every single service to 150%. They have to specialize in certain areas. So imagine if you had a VA who has this massive network of other VAs, you know, you pretty much can get your VA to do anything for you because they have this other network of VAs that they can turn to that are specialists in each area. And you know, you don't get that when you say you can only have one person from this industry. Photographers, for example, you know, every single photographer has a different niche. A wedding photographer doesn't take pictures of children in schools. A wedding photographer doesn't take product shots. But as soon as you start saying, I'm only having one photographer, you sort of only present one area to everybody else in the networking group. But actually, the photographers should be working together because, again, they can't offer all the services to everybody. They also sometimes, if it's a massive event, they need extra photographers to come with them. So of course they should be networking together and making connections with each other and building that relationship, then building that trust, not being told by some networking group that we only have one photographer in at a time. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think we should be all just working together to kind of go through life instead of like competing against each other. So I'm you know, we use a lot in my group the hashtag collaboration over competition, because everybody should be collaborating together, not seeing each other as a competition ever.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's true that not every networking event is made equal. They all have a different agenda, a different purpose. And so it's worth kind of exploring which different networks are around for you and which ones meet your values and have the kind of people that you want to hang out with or meet. Do you have any tips for finding the right kind of networking events?
I think first of all, like, it's just research. There's so many websites that literally have all of the like networking groups on it. There's findnetworkingevents.com where you can go on there and look in specific regions, specific industries. So, you know, you just literally need to start with finding a list of events. Then obviously ask people that you know in small business, like, where are you going? A lot of events will offer a guest. You can bring a guest with you, so that means that if you can go with a friend, you've already kind of hit that first hurdle of not being scared and going into a room where you don't know anyone, because you're going with you're already got a chum that you can go with who can introduce you to other people. And I think as well that you just have to remember that networking isn't a one size that fits all, because an event that you go to and find you didn't really feel the atmosphere wasn't right for you, the content wasn't right for you, your friend might think is absolutely amazing. So you have to just remember that networking is not a one size fits all, but it is about trying out a few, deciding which ones you like, and then being consistent at them. So, you know, you can't expect to turn up once every 6 months and build these relationships. You have to consistently turn up to the events, but you also have to consistently catch up with people after the event. And, you know, social media is a great way of doing that without having to keep your diary stocked up with coffee meetings. You know, you can just hop onto Twitter and be like, hi, how is it going? Remember we chatted at such and such an event and you were doing X, Y, and Z. How did it go? And just keeping that conversation developing. And I think when you actively seek somebody out and ask them how something they've told you when, they automatically will want to continue conversations with you, because they know that you've listened to what they've been talking about and you've taken a keen interest in what they're doing, and you've already started to build that trust and friendship kind of thing with them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, you know, when you say it, it sounds so obvious, but it's something that so few people do. And it can really help you stand out. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It could be, oh, I saw this and it reminded me of the conversation that we had. Or, yeah, as you say, checking in, how did that project go? Or that big event you were doing. It's these little things that really make the difference. So is there any tips you would have for people who are thinking, okay, yeah, that sounds great, I'd love to go to my first networking event, maybe? how can they prepare to have a great networking experience?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is prepare your pitch. And this isn't like a sales pitch. You're not selling anything to anybody. You're just having, it's like 2 sentences about what you do. And the reason you need to prepare this is because as soon as somebody asks you a question, you'll straight away, your mind will go completely blank and you'll just talk gibberish, and you'll use words like and you'll say, oh, I just write a blog, which then automatically devalues your blog straight away because you've used the word just, or you need to have a pitch that you can eloquently just reel off. So straight away, you know what you do, they know what you do, and they know the benefit to them of what you do. And having that pitch as well makes you feel confident, because it means that you know what you're doing, rather than trying to just ramble some words together. And I think it's important when you write your pitch to go through a few steps, making sure that, obviously introduce yourself first. So, hello, my name is Joanne. What your business is, what your business can offer, and then a kind of call to action at the end of it. And try not to use like jargon words, because people just won't get that. And try not to make it overcomplicated, because as soon as you start using jargon and make your thing overcomplicated, people will just switch off and they won't listen. So yeah, that would be my main tip, because it's just a confidence thing for you as well, but it also gets your message across in a way that everybody knows what's going on. And a lot of small networking groups will have even if you're not pitching to the person next to you kind of thing, most of them will have a round robin in the beginning where everyone has a couple of minutes just to say, hi, my name is, and you don't want to feel uncomfortable about that. You don't want to be sat in your seat thinking, oh, I hope it doesn't come to me, because you don't know what you want to say.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, if you go to a networking event, it is inevitable that at least one person, normally everyone, will ask you, what do you do? And so, it's so important to be prepared to answer that and to do so clearly. I've lost count at how many people I've met at networking events, and I've asked, oh, so what do you do? And I've just no clue. So I'm like, oh, that's nice. So that's always my tip. Like, if you present your pitch and people say, oh, that's nice, and then you need to rework it, because it hasn't come across clearly. You haven't had that clear call to action or made the benefits of what you do clear. So yeah, if you get a that's nice response, it means go back to the drawing board, start again, because what you really want is to prompt that next question. Oh, that's interesting, tell me more. And then you've got permission to not to launch into your sales pitch, but to start telling them a little bit more. And it's nice to have a handful of stories that you can share of how what you do has improved other people's lives in some way, so that you can make it feel real and human and engaging, and people remember stories. And it's so much easier for you then as well to remember what else you can bring into the conversation. And once you get going, it gets quite addictive, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as soon as you have that pitch that off by heart, then you can start tailoring it to different events. So if you're going to an event where it's a different audience to normal, you can change the tone. If you're going to a genre specific event, you can change a few words in it. But because you know it off by heart already, you've literally you've got yourself confident before you've even started.
So what's been the best outcome you've had from a networking event, do you think?
For me, because I host most of my networking events, I'm not always sort of looking to get anything from the event, but I am very much a people-pleasing host. Like, I love putting people together and being like, you guys could do something really good here, and I do that just naturally without even thinking about it outside of networking events as well. I'm always meeting people and thinking, oh my God, you should meet my friend. They do such and such. And that's what I really get that buzz out of helping other people and putting people together that maybe wouldn't have thought that they would have had something to do in the first place together. And I love like taking people who have very specific ideas of what their business is, and they've got like this specific route that they're going to go down, and they're not going to move out of this, and then it's not working for them, and then you just sort of say those two sort of sentences to them, and then they're suddenly like, oh my God, I could do that. So I had this VA friend who's been doing the same sort of business for a long while, and one day I was just having a conversation with her about editing my book and formatting it, and she was like, that's what I do. I was like, what? You've never ever said that you format books? And she's like, wow, I format Word docs. That's what I do. So it can't be too much different. So she went off and had a look, and then came back and was like, yeah, I can format your book for you. And now she offers it as a service to other people, but she would never, and like, you know, she was so stuck in a routine of this is what I offer as a service, that she just didn't think about how other skills and how those skills could be transferred into other services for other people. And I just really like doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's great when you speak to other people, isn't it? And they can shine the light on your business and give you new perspectives that you perhaps miss, because we all have these blind spots, and very often the skills that are our best skills are just so natural to us that we're not always aware of them as much as other people's. Well, wow, you can do that, that's incredible. It's like, well, yeah, doesn't everyone? So it's nice to have the network. And I totally agree with you that networking, a lot of people think it's all about, just getting the business card and getting, like, building your LinkedIn list, but it's not. It's so much more rewarding when you do it as a service and you start connecting people. And when you do that, then people take that as a kind of a signal, and they do the same for you. They're like, oh, and you should speak to so and so. And it's really yeah, it becomes this really wonderful exchange of ideas and connections, and it's just, yeah, a really nice way to do business. And in fact, it was thanks to my network that I managed to get all 3 of my businesses started at 0 cost, and within the first few days, just by going out to my network and saying, hi, this is what I'm doing now, and they're like, oh great, can I work with you? You're like, yes, you can. And then just going back at them and saying, well, who else can I be working with? Do you know someone that needs this? And they're like, yeah, speak to so-and-so. And it was just so easy. I mean, keeping it going after that is takes a bit more effort, but getting that start point was just makes it so much easier, and it helps you eliminate some of those doubts and that you can have inevitably at the beginning of starting anything new.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's nothing wrong with having like a goal. If you're going to your networking event, there's nothing wrong with having a goal in that for that event. But there's also nothing wrong with having that goal as just being to meet some new people. There doesn't have to be a specific outcome to the networking event other than meeting new people, having a chat. I think there's a lot to be said about having conversations with people, regardless of what you're actually talking about, because we don't, we spend a lot of time by ourselves. When you're self-employed, you just spend an awful lot of time on your own. You spend an awful lot of time on a computer. So actually having real life physical contact with other people, it sets off like all these hormones inside your body that you then take home, and then you become more productive in your rest of your day because you're on that high from the networking event. Your mind is buzzing because somebody said something and it set you off on another thing, and you're like, oh my god, I could really do this. And it changes the energy of your whole day by going out and just being around actual real life people.
Yeah, completely. And it really builds your confidence as well in so many different ways. Having other people affirm what you're doing or give you new ideas, or just having pushed yourself out there and done something really brave, like enter a room with strangers, it really helps in so many areas.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing, going back to the idea of traditional networking, that's not how traditional networking is sort of come across. It's like, you're in a corporate environment with lots of stuffy suits, all passing around business cards, and it's very much like you have to leave with a referral or buy something from somebody by the end of it. And actually that type of networking, it doesn't suit the whole self-employed people, especially women and men who work around their children as well, because our time is very precious, that when we leave the office, because we have so little of it to start with, that whatever interactions you're having, you want them to be the best they can be.
Yeah, completely. So we've talked a lot about networking, but before we wrap up, I'd love to pick your brains a little bit around blogging, because I know it's something that a lot of people they're like, oh, I have a business, I've got a website, I have to have a blog, and feel under pressure a little bit to create that. Do you have any tips for getting started, or to know whether or not it's the right thing for you to do?
I think that you have to be consistent in blogging. There's no second about it. You have to be consistent. But also, I think people have a tendency to write a blog post and then push it out on social media and then forget about it. And actually, you could just have one excellent piece of content on your website that you're continuously pushing out to everybody that would do just as well as 10 pieces of content that you're like randomly just left there on your website. You know, you have to be always sort of resharing that stuff. And I think if you're going to start a blog, you need to decide like why you want a blog. If it's for SEO and Google purposes, then you're going to fall flat quite quickly because you won't be able to keep up that sustainability. But if you're writing a blog to share your expertise, I think that's a lot easier to keep the momentum because you want to share your expertise. But also you put all your, like having that one good blog post that you've put all of your great content into that you can share out all the time, that's more powerful than having all these random bits and pieces that you've just been like, oh, I've got a blog schedule that says I need to do something today, I better do something.
That's great advice. And yeah, as you say, we can quickly get caught in that trap of, oh, I have to put something out there and just throwing anything out there, when actually one or two stronger pieces that really showcase what you're about, what your business is about, share some useful tips and really start to engage your audience and gets picked up and used, and you share it regularly as well, because you say it can be really powerful.
And if you have something in it that people like, you know, a link to joining your free Facebook group or a free download of something, or you know, something in there that keeps people coming back, a call to action. People always never end blog posts with call to actions, and sometimes my call to action is literally just like ending with a question because I want them to engage and write a comment about what I've written. But you know, people hardly ever finish their blog posts with call to actions, and then they wonder why nobody's done anything, because sometimes you literally have to tell the reader what you want them to do at the end of this blog post. You know, you have to make it completely clear. So you know, having that like free download that someone can take on board, or having a Facebook group that they can go to, and then you'll be able to see that people are coming from this blog post to those freebies, and then it validates the fact that that blog post is a good blog post and it's getting the traction that you want it to get.
Yeah, that's so true with the call to action, and it, otherwise you're giving all this content out and they're like, oh, that's really nice, and then they just disappear forever. You need some way to have that relationship with people, and I love it when I speak to people quite often about their business, and they're like, well, you know, I found your blog post and then I clicked on this link and I did this training and I joined your group and I've had your emails, and they've had this huge relationship with me, so that by the time we're talking they really know everything about me, and they know they're ready to work with me, which is great. And it's, so I think it's not just having that call to action, but having those links between your content so people can really go on a journey with you, and take those roads that suit them, which is really, really fun. And it's quite a powerful element to your content, but it does take, as you say, time and consistency and dedication to create that. My background's in communications anyway, so as soon as, with my first business, I was a communication consultant, so the idea of writing more content was just not appealing at all. But now as a business coach, it's quite fun now to maintain that written element, and this is part of my networking, by the way. It's my podcast. It's like, who would I like to speak to today? Oh, I can see Joanne would like to come on my podcast. So there's different ways you can make those connections as well. You can really get creative about your business and what works for you. As you say, when you're a mompreneur, you don't always have the same time and opportunities as you would if you were a full-time business owner with the childcare all taken care of.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, a blog gives you the opportunity, well, any written content, you know, social media does the same, your podcast does the same, YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. What they do is they give your business the personality, so that people, you know, we're quite shallow. We buy from people that we like, we'll do business with people we like, and we do business with people that we feel an affection for and feel a connection with. And blogging gives you that opportunity to put your personality across. You know, you're not right. I never write content for myself that I would then put on corporate business websites. You know, I obviously have a different tone when I'm writing freelance stuff for other people, but when I'm writing my own stuff, I have my own like non-formal way of writing things. I put emojis in it. I have little like laughing comments in brackets and things. I always make reference to my child, and you know, I do that in a way that my personality comes across and people buy into me because they're beginning to feel a relationship with me. I'm not writing a piece of content that's very like corporate and hasn't got any personality. It's very deadpan, and you know, they want to interact with me. And also I like to write content that has lots of bullet points. So, you know, I appreciate that most of my audience are people with children, so they're reading it maybe on their phone or on the go, so they want actionable things that they can do straight away. They don't want to be going through like a long list of ways to do something. They want quick actionable points that they can take on board straight away and go and do that, and it makes a difference to their life.
Great. And on that point around personality, do you have any advice for people when they're just starting out of how to find their voice and their personality? Because it's not always so easy. And I know that was something I really struggled with when starting out, particularly as I'd spent like more than 20 years writing in other people's voices. Then I was suddenly like, well, what's my voice? And it was something that I really struggled with for a long time.
I think you're like, the more you write anyway, your style of writing will change. There's like some things that I've written 10 years ago and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. You know, your style of writing develops anyway. But I think you just have to be, I know it's a bit of a buzzword, but you have to be authentic, because you can't ever carry off a fakeness, whether it's in written form or when you go to a networking event and meet somebody face to face. You can't ever carry off an unauthentic person and be somebody else for long term. You just can't. There's going to be a point where you have to slip into your normalness, because you just can't carry on that for a long term. So just be authentic. If, you know, for me, I don't swear, so I would never swear in my content, but there's lots of other people who do swear, and that's because when you actually meet them, they swear all the time, and that's the authentic, they're being themselves. You know, I would never post anything derogatory about my husband, but other people I know do, because that's them, that's what they're like, that's the way they come across, you know, that's just how they normally are. And I think people will we're more forgiving, especially like now in the coronavirus times, where, you know, nobody's going to the BBC studio and having an interview. They're doing it in their house with their books behind them, with their toddler running around, with a cat. There was a cat the other day, wasn't there, that stole the limelight on a Zoom video. But you know what I mean? We've become more accepting of like real people. We don't expect them to be a robot. We don't expect them to have a website that makes out that they're a massive corporate business. We expect them to say I, and it's me, it's just me on my own. And we want to develop relationships with people rather than a fake person that is. So I think it's really important to just be yourself and be authentic. And if you're writing something and you're thinking, this doesn't sound like me, then don't use it, because you won't be able to keep that up long term if you're trying to be something you're not.
Yeah, I love that advice. And it's true. I think a lot of people, when they start to write for a blog or anything to do with their business, they suddenly think, right, I have to be professional. And professional just pushes people away, because it puts a barrier between who you really are. And you just need to think about, the way I think about it is like, okay, if I was in Starbucks chatting to my friend and explaining this, how would I do that, rather than sort of trying to have any kind of professional speak in there. And like yourself, my voice has kind of developed over time. I would still like to have it to be a little bit more fun sometimes, but I was like, well, you know, I really want it to focus on getting the value out there and helping people really take those first steps in certain areas of their business. So so far it's been getting good feedback, so that's fine, and people do seem to engage. And it's nice to then supplement that with lots of video content where people can see who I really am as well, and engage in a different way, which is nice. But it's true, until you become yourself, it's hard to be confident as well. And if you're not confident in who you are and what you're doing, then your client's never going to be either. So it's a bit of a evolution. It's a journey, as with everything in business, I think. But perhaps just get started and get going.
Yeah, definitely.
Joanne, you have shared so much value today, and I've loved all of your networking and blogging tips. Is there any final piece of advice you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, I think you know, to quote a famous like brand, I think that whether it's networking or blogging or starting a small business, in any case, you just have to do it, because you can never get to that stage where your preparation is perfect. You just have to sometimes just do it, and then like develop from then on. There's you know, the more time you sit there waiting for that perfect moment or the perfect networking group or the perfect time of the day, it's just never going to happen. So you just have to just do it. And you know, we all make mistakes. Some people maybe don't tell you about their mistakes they make, but most people will be quite happy to tell you the things that they've done wrong along the way, because they don't want you to do it. But you know, you just have to get on and just do it, because otherwise you just never will.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. There is never any perfect time to do anything. And if you wait around trying to create the perfect blog post, you'll never create anything. So yeah, just get it out there, and people like it when it's real too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if, you know, if 2020 has taught us anything, you know, and whatever you think is going to be perfect, and however you think your route is going to go, there's always something that may just derail you or change your perspective. And you know, there's so many of my small business friends that have had to completely change their small business because of coronavirus and because of what they were offering. And if you know, if you haven't got that resilience and you haven't got that motivation to just get on with things, then you know, you will fall at the first hurdle.
Yeah, and if in doubt, rely on that beautiful network that you've created, because they'll be there for you completely.
Definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Joanne. And before I'm going to put all your links underneath this this episode, but for anyone who's out in the park with their kids right now and listening, how can they find you?
Well, you can find me on social media under my name. So everything's Joanne Dewberry. So I'm very easy to find because it's just me. And my website is called joannedewberry.co.uk. And all my information's on there, and links to my books and stuff.
Fabulous. Well, thanks again for all of your wisdom today. It's been really fantastic, and have a great day.
Thank you.